Good evening, everybody. We're broadcasting live from Barren Ridge Vineyards. This is John Higgs over here. Rascal, I'm Robert Higgs. So we're celebrating Father's Day, and we're going to be kind of unscripted like usual, impromptu. So we have my father, and we're maybe learning that Rascal is a father as well. So I think my dad has a story about that, so you might want to listen in.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, he showed up here in 2008 just as a stray. He was with a partner, and she was pregnant as a little beagle, just as pregnant as she could be. So he is a father, and I would love to have some of the puppies because they both ran off 2 or 3 times. Finally, he came back, and we haven't seen her since.
So if you see any beagles that look like this, you might want to come visit us over here because we're interested in that.
Yeah, because Rascal's been a great dog. He's been the winery dog. Was the wine dog of the year in 2014, I think it was, in the state of Virginia, in the whole state of Virginia. So I'm proud of my little puppy here.
Okay. So we have a couple of distinguished gentlemen, a couple of handsome gentlemen, and we're going to taste a little bit of wine. We're going to taste 2 different Meritage vintages, 2 different Meritage vintages, 2009 and 2015. The 2015 has recently won the first Shenandoah Cup, which was the first year that the Shenandoah Valley wineries did a cup, and was rated first out of 60 odd wines. And the 2009 Meritage was featured in the governor's case, so won a gold medal and was featured in the governor's case, so did very well. I'm not sure what year, 2014 I believe that was.
Well, it's a 2009 wine, and it was 2000 and I think it was 14. Yeah.
Okay, we can double check, but we think it was 2014 in the governor's case. And both these wine, well, they're kind of similar with their profiles. There's 35% Merlot, 45% Petit Verdot, 15% Cabernet Franc, and 5% Cabernet Sauvignon in the 2009. And the 2015 has 50% Petit Verdot and 25% Cabernet Franc, so a little more Petit Verdot and more Cabernet Franc. Just 12.5% Merlot, so less than half the Merlot, and 12.5% Cabernet Sauvignon. And we would have had different, this wine was made by Jesse Gatewood, who is our current winemaker, who is very experienced and worked with some of the best producers in Virginia. And she's with us now, and she's worked with us before, so we're happy to have her here. In 2009, the Meritage, 2009, still Christoph, right?
Christoph, no, Christoph had left. Christoph was a fella who helped us get in business, a German fella who just happened to show up looking for work, but he had gone back to Germany. But it was the second year that you helped us.
7 and 8.
So Robert and I worked together on this vintage, and it was the first vintage that introduced our grapes into our wines, and it was a very unusual, very beautiful year for growing grapes. We had a spectacular harvest, and this wine had some issues. Some of the Petit Verdot, for instance, we had a stuck solenoid on the cooling tank during the fermentation, and we had a runaway exothermic reaction while we were making wine. And I think I thought the wine was ruined, but it turned out that made some of the best Petit Verdot we've ever made. And so I'm somehow or another thinking through that maybe that is something that may help in the future. Especially helps with the high temperature. It helps blow off any of the volatiles that you don't want in the wine. Blows them away because of the heat. But anyway, that was the last time that Robert and I worked together as a team in harvest, and it turned out to be a beautiful wine.
So that was the year we lost most of our crew, and it was just you and me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so back in 2009, we lost a lot of our crew, and we wound up working very closely together, sometimes 24-hour shifts at a time, and we were learning a lot. And like my dad said, what he explained before is the cooling valve was fused closed, so we couldn't control the temperature. So when fermentation started, fermentation produces heat. The temperature went up, so it was fermented. It probably fermented very quickly at a high temperature, and that's a totally different form of extraction. That's not how we typically do things, gently and slow. And at lower temperatures, but this was a runaway fermentation, and so it was an accident, and sometimes you run into happy accidents. This happened to produce a very good wine. Like I said, Petit Verdot was 45%, so that really would have had an impact. And this, wine is a unique product. It's very different every year. Every vintage is extremely different depending on climate, weather, and the human hands involved in the project. So every year is like a little time capsule. So it's another thing that makes wine very interesting. So this is 2009. I'm going to pour us a couple glasses, and this is impromptu, so whatever stories come up. We have Kirk Fox here filming us. He's doing a lot of our technological work. And we're sitting here in the old apple orchard inside a barrel room that has wood from the original building from 1934. And we're going to taste a little wine. We haven't pre-tasted these, so we don't know what's in the bottle. We're going to see how it tastes.
All right.
And I will say Happy Father's Day to my father. It's nice to have my father here.
Yeah.
And
it's a joy to be sharing this with you, son.
And we don't do this very often.
No, we don't. And normally he's a royal pain in the ass, but
Okay, moving on. Alrighty.
all right, son.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'm going to let my dad explain the wine, then I'm going to tell you how it actually tastes.
Okay. It's got a love. Now, the one thing we didn't know when we started this business was, at least I didn't know, we lived in Europe and was used to the European wines, and we weren't sure about how long lived our wines would be from the grapes from Barren Ridge and from the Shenandoah Valley. And so now we're beginning to taste the wines that have been, this wine is 11 years old. And I've been very impressed with it. This comes out from our library. We always save a few cases of wine just so we can taste them later on and get a feel for how well our wines are aging. And
we wish we had more library wines. We will be releasing some library wines in the future, so it's good we talk about it now. And Kirk will tell me when to stop. I just want to show you the label. This is the old label. So it looks like I did this on like a Word document like 10 years ago, but it doesn't look bad. It shows our what became our symbol. This is our skyline. This is Betsy Bell and Mary Gray, which are the little hills over by Stanton that are a very particular feature from around here. And this is our skyline. It's almost, we're moving into sunset time now. We have beautiful sunsets here. And my dad's already tasted the wine.
One thing I would like to do is correct him a little bit about this building that we're in. He said 1934. That's when my father bought the winery. He bought the winery. This building exists. It was an apple orchard back in those days. The building, there's no records when this building was built. Our supposition is that it was built somewhere around the 1890s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually what I thought, but we've been debating that here recently. So
we have no records of it. We've searched the records and we couldn't find any records of it ever been built.
Right. So this property was bought. This building existed when it was bought in 1934 by your father.
That's right. By my father.
James A. Higgs.
Right. Yep. And the company that owned it before my father did was a Dutch American company. back in that era, the Shenandoah Valley was the apple growing region of the U.S. and the main apple growing region of the U.S. And a lot of European companies were here making business in this arena. And my father came over from West Virginia to buy apple orchards and to help my grandfather, who started Higgs and Young Corporation, which was a barrel making operation back in the day.
And they were using the barrels for?
They were using the barrels. My grandfather made a small fortune, well, a fairly large fortune actually, supplying the troops in the First World War with the Pippin apple, the
Albemarle
Virginia,
Pippin?
Albemarle Pippin apple, yeah. And it was famous. It was indestructible. Big green apple, but had a great taste and could survive the trip. And that's how he made his money.
Okay.
And why we exist over here.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so this wine is 11 years in about 10 years in the bottle, because we kept it for probably 9 years in the bottle, because we kept it in the barrel for 2 years. It's still bracing. It's still got a lot of. It's still a lively wine, and it's gotten deeper. It's basically what I get out of it. My son Robert will be able to tease out a lot more different types of aromas and flavors from it. But I get the deep fruit, stone fruits, and so forth in this wine.
Smells like it.
Great. Has a great palate, I think.
Well, you can certainly say just from the nose. You can also see the color. It's still fairly youthful in the glass. Red wine gets lighter as it ages typically, and white wine tends to get darker. So what you will see as a red wine ages is you'll see some orange tinges around the edges of the wine. You might see some browning of the wine. But here you don't really see that. It still looks fairly youthful. It's a nice color. It's a deep ruby. There's a little bit of coloration around the edges, but that's it. Nose. Smells youthful. Smells like concentrated fruit. Black fruit. It smells elegant. It smells earthy. Sorry, I just made some barrels wobble in here. It smells earthy. You smell it's kind of some wild plants, and it's the type of earthiness or the wildness that's good in a wine. I don't mean really vegetal. I mean, it smells like wild herbs like sage and rosemary out in the field after a rainstorm, for instance. Some beautiful fruit, different types of fruit components, black and red, a lot of plum, a little bit of smokiness, cassis, these types of fruits. And it really just smells beautiful. There's a few floral notes floating around in there. It has 4 different varietals, so there's a lot of complexity. It's had time to age and mellow out, and it smells like a beautiful wine. So give it a try. You've already tried it?
I did. Delicious.
Maybe a note of vanilla, tobacco, leather, a little bit of these notes too, which are notes that you find more as wine matures. But it smells youthful and beautiful. Mostly fruit. So whatever happened in 2009, it turned out well.
Yeah.
This wine it's over 10 years old. It tastes delicious. It's very smooth. A lot of the components that we talked about in the nose are still there. I should let you talk about how it tastes first, if you want to talk about the palate.
It's it's one of my favorite wines. It always has been, mainly because of how well it did in the Governor's Cup. We came in actually second to the Governor's Cup winner. But not only that, it's just a representative of what I look for in a wine. It has purity. It's a beautiful reflection of the poetry of the soil that we have in the Shenandoah Valley, and I love the fact that we now know that we can grow a wine, that grow grapes and produce a wine that will last for many, many years, just like we used to find in Europe where we were there. A lot of things we're finding now, because it's such a new business, a new business in the Shenandoah Valley for us, so we're beginning to find out what we can do with our grapes, and it gives me a great feeling for what we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, agree with.
Because we were still learning. There's a lot of things that we're still learning from these wines.
And you'll never finish learning.
No.
But what my dad says, he calls it the poetry of the earth. What I say all the time is we try to get what's out in the vineyard into the glass with as little interference as possible. Basically, a shepherding process where we're being a good steward of the fruit and everything that happens in nature to get it in here. And this is a really good example. We've tasted a lot of wines, especially Petit Verdot and Meritage. They age incredibly well. As good as anything that you find in other countries, often a lot better. Very surprising how well they age. So it's a real nod to the quality of the work here, the soils, and everything that happens to the wine. You wouldn't have a wine last like that if it was made in a hurry, or if it wasn't quality coming out of the vineyard. So there's some real quality and some real artisanal work that goes into doing this, and it tastes delicious. One of the first things I noted, as soon as I smelled it, I got immediately extremely hungry. It's a very good food wine, and I'm starving now. It smells and tastes really good. I've had these flavors still tingling on my tongue for multiple minutes now, so it's very long. One of the characteristics that I think we get when I taste our wines is very good length. It's carried by a good freshness and acidity. We have nice, clean, fairly cool soils that lends acidity and structure to the wines, and lends a sense of place. So Virginia wines and our wines will taste differently than anywhere on the earth. And we're borrowing knowledge from Europe, from a lot of the great consultants we've worked with, and some hands-on Higgs family. Whatever we knew at the time went into this, and we did the best we could. So a lot of different factors went into this wine, and it's really delicious. Mark McCune was working with us. He's our viticulture. He's our vineyard manager and viticulturist, and he was new and learning back then. We all were. And we hope to keep progressing and keep doing what we do even better in the future. And there are some notes of cocoa and white pepper and nutmeg. They're still in my tongue, and it's really delicious wine. It's fantastic food wine. Reminds you of Bordeaux, but it's uniquely Virginia.
Yep.
And a very elegant Bordeaux. So that was the first wine. And if you can, open the bottle an hour early, 2 hours early, and let it air out. I think the wine would appreciate having a little oxygen on it, but it smells delicious, tastes delicious. Mm-hmm. You can see the crystals form. You get a little, I'll let my dad explain this because I know he knows all about this, but you see some crystals form on the cork of the 2009, and you will not see them on the 2015. So this is a process that happens over time, where.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. The cork. It only after 10 years, it's only penetrated the cork by about not even a quarter of an inch, about an eighth of an inch. Lots of times you'll see it coming all the way through. So
it's a good quality cork.
We did a good job corking it. We hardly knew what we were doing back in those days, and that was our third harvest, actually.
Yep.
And,
it's a pretty long cork.
Yep.
So you see, it's
Yeah. Very heavy bottle. We weren't sure exactly. We wanted to, because we built this wine to age. We built it as a representative of the best. Our Meritage is always that way. We select the best of our wines, and in the best of our barrels. That later on, after the wine is maturing in the barrel, and we use those to create our Meritage, and we age it longer than we normally do with our reds. Usually, it's about 8 months in the barrel, and we can bottle it. It's a year, almost 2 years before we bottle this wine, the Meritage, and we let it age for as long as we can until we have to sell it. And I think we're on a good path with these wines.
Definitely. And these are hand selected, so we'll taste all of our barrels, and we'll choose what we think are the best tasting barrels, and that's what goes into the best tasting barrels from 2009 are what winds up in our Meritage. So it's a very selective process.
Yep.
And did you want to explain the crystals?
I've forgotten the name for the crystal.
Is it tartaric?
Tartaric acid. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So these are certain things titrate out.
Yeah.
You'll have a natural sediment in most red wines over time. Tannins will fall out, and things like tartaric acid will form crystals, and you'll find them on, they don't really interfere with the taste of the wine or anything, but they'll form on the cork, and you might find some in the bottle too. But just interesting to note, actually looks very pretty. You can smell the cork.
Yeah.
It smells nice.
If you have a whole
clean.
lot of them in the wine, we tend to call them wine diamonds. Yeah.
Wine diamonds, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that exciting? So anyway, that's a beautiful wine. Still smells, you smell some smoky fruit in the bottom of the glass. It's called the Third Nose. So beautiful wine. Can't say enough about it. And we're going to move on to the 2015 Meritage, made by Jesse Gatewood. We all participate, but Jesse is the primary driver in our winery. And as you see, we changed the label. It's a very elegant black label, just classic, to represent the quality of the wine. And like I said, this one won the first Shenandoah Cup, so we're very happy with that. And we don't submit a lot of wines for medals. We submitted 4 this year, and we got 4 medals, and we're very happy with that. And we like medals, of course, but what we really like is that everybody that comes in here is happy with our wine, and that's the best feedback we get. We like the way it tastes. People have fun here. They take a moment out of life, a moment out of time, and just enjoy themselves on our patio or talking to us. We love talking about our wines, and that's really what this place is built on. My father can talk more about that, about John and Shelby's ideas of how this place should be going into the future and its real foundations, but it's all about relaxing, taking a moment out of time and just enjoying yourself with something like this.
Yeah.
Give it a little twist at the end. Sometimes that helps.
Well, while we're talking about that and letting this air out a little bit, my wife Shelby and I, as I mentioned earlier, lived overseas for a number of years. I'm an engineer, and enjoyed it immensely. Got to know the wines over there. Got interested in wines. The apple business in the valley, in the Shenandoah Valley, had gone away basically because we lost the business to Yakima Valley and Washington State mainly, and so the growing of fruit as a lifestyle in the valley had disappeared really until while we were over there, while we were over in Europe, and we were over there for 8 years, and the when we came back, we were surprised to find that there was a wine business here, and really good wines. When we left, the wines were not very good, and we wouldn't really think of Virginia as a wine region. But that changed very rapidly because we had some very serious winemakers, a lot of them from France, who came here and worked with the growers and started producing outstanding wines. And this property, which was St. James Orchard at the time when I was a kid, I remember working here with my father for many years. But I left because the business was no longer viable. And we came back, it was the land was still here, still in the family. And when I retired from Philip Morris and moved back to Richmond, the land was still here and the building was still here, but it was overgrown for 30 years. And we got the idea, this is something we could do to bring the land back to life. And basically that's been the project that we've had for the last 12 years. And it's been a spectacular, my wife Shelby and I worked very hard, but it was the joy of our life to do this. And now we have an opportunity to turn it over to my son and his wife Angela, and they can carry it on to the future and then possibly into the next generation.
We're working on all that, so we got plenty to do here.
It sounds kind of serious, but it's it's the joy of life,
Yeah. So my dad's father and his father's father, they were farming. A generation before your father, they were also farming. Part of the family was farming. I think they were also raising some apples. Yep. So four generation of, we would be the fourth generation of people raising fruit in the family, as far as we know. And we'd be the third generation on this property, so we're happy to do whatever we can to continue the tradition. And we're sitting in an old building with a lot of wood from the original building that has absorbed a lot of emotion and memory and a lot of things over time. So it's very interesting to sit in a place like this and talk to your father and be surrounded by friends that are helping, like Kirk here with the technology, and just have a little conversation doing wine tasting on Father's Day. Why not? And it's a strange time, but it's good we can do things like this. So it's fun. Yep. And so we might, take a little whiff of the wine now and see what we think.
All right, good. Let's do that.
And I'll leave it up to the expert. Smells a good bit different, I could say that, than the 2009.
It does. It does. It's a very elegant wine. Of course, it hasn't aged nearly as much as our 09, but this is to me it's a very elegant wine. And the majority of the majority was a Petit Verdot, or
there's a good there's 50% Petit Verdot versus 45, and there's 25% Cabernet Franc versus 15. So basically, there's less Merlot as the primary difference, and a little bit less Cabernet Sauvignon.
The main thing that I look for in wine is purity, and that's a kind of a difficult term to explain, but you know it when you got it. It's we have an advantage. We know each one of those grapes out there. we do everything here by hand, so we have a very close connection between, mainly due to the superb vineyard manager we have in Mark McCune, who is religious about the grapes, and drives us all crazy all year long, and because whenever he sees anything wrong, he thinks it's the end of the world, and
he makes himself sick. He drives himself crazy also.
yeah, but we love him, and we make sure that he is going to be here forever, because he is one of the main reasons that we're able to produce this type of wine. So by being that close connected to the grapes, this wine never left the property. The grapes were grown. We produced the wine just in the next room over from where we are now, which is the winery, and it's stored. So it has the life cycle of a lot of wines in industrial wines, I would say. It's gone through different countries. It's been on ships. It's been around the world, and it comes to you, and good wine. This one it's basically been here, and been handled very gently and with love for its life, and that's what we're trying to sell. And we're selling also an atmosphere, it's family, it's tradition. It is trying to make the very best out of which was what my father always instilled in me, is you put everything into growing the fruit, and you do everything to make sure that you bring it to, when it comes to the table, you've done everything right to make it pure to its roots, and that's what we do. And I think that this wine is, to me, it's a, you can it's when it comes straight out of the bottle, it should have aired out a little bit more. It takes me longer to tease out the.
It's a younger wine. It probably needs a little more time.
Yeah. Well, it's very nicely. It's a very elegant wine right now. Maybe even more refined than the 09. But it was. I'm really proud of it. The more of a cherry flavor, and the bright fruits.
It's a very different profile of spices. There's a touch of. Do you taste coffee? Something like coffee? I taste little notes of coffee, which is the similar direction to cocoa, which I said earlier, but it's kind of more in that direction, and a whole different set of spice notes. Really kind of different fruit. It smells a little more fruity on the nose than the 2009, and you get less of those kind of wild herb notes. But it's very different. It's very elegant on its own. It tastes very good. It's probably going to benefit from a little more time in the bottle, and it's delicious also. It's a very different wine. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much. The flavor of the fruit flavors in here probably are a little bit more distinct, and with the older wines, they tend to meld closer together, and so that you get a more homogeneous, I guess, flavor of the wine. It's a little darker, and it's just the profile is something different. Here it's a little, although that was very lively, the 09. This is you can differentiate the flavor. At least I can now. More clearer than than the 09.
Yeah, with age, you get your primary fruit comes from the vineyard and ends up in your wine. And with something more youthful, like a 2015, you have more of the primary fruit, aromas, which are really fruit. And then you get secondary aromas as wines age. You also get secondary aromas from things like barrels. So things that aren't from the fruit are the secondary aromas. And there's a typical evolution of certain grape varietals, and that's a whole discovery process and something that should be done over time. But this is a normal process, the evolution of wine, and every wine evolves differently. It depends on so many different factors, and the best thing you can do is just open the wine and enjoy the moment, and just think about all the work that went into it, all the different factors that go into this, all the attention that's paid in the vineyard, looking at the different insects, being very smart with your timing at harvest date, and the different process that the vine goes through as it matures to give you very good grapes that are harvested at the right time, that are eventually blended together to make a wine like this that evolves over a very long period of time to be enjoyed with other people. So I would say we like it.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about the winery and the history and what we do here. And we hope to introduce everybody out there to these ideas, to what we're doing here. And we like people to relax and have fun, enjoy their lives, take a moment out of life and breathe in, breathe out, slow down, and appreciate what's in the glass, or just appreciate what they're surrounded by here, the natural beauty and our beautiful sunsets, and hopefully everything, all the intentionality that went into building a place like this, all the hard work from my parents, and is being transferred to Angela and I, and we're just trying to continue the tradition. So we invite you to join us here, and we're glad you're out there in this virtual audience, and we hope to see you in the actual world and the actual audience in the future, and maybe currently. You know, we have people in our patio right now, and we're happy to see everybody's faces again, and let's enjoy life together, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and hope everybody is safe and well out there. And we appreciate all your help and support. And we'll be here. We're doing some storytelling today, and I'll let my dad have the last word. Not sure what that's going to be.
Just say that how much I appreciate being with my son here. This has been a long process that my wife Shelby and I went through, and it is really nice to be able to turn it over to people who are going to take it to its final destination in the future. And we're hoping that there's a long life to this winery and to this Shenandoah Valley wine trail, and which is really just beginning. And I think there's a great future ahead for the family here, and for the wine industry in the Shenandoah Valley. So here's to all of you all out there. Have a great Father's Day, and please come and visit us and see what we have to offer.
Happy Father's Day. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers, Dad. Cheers. Happy Father's Day. And here's to the Shenandoah Valley, and here's to all the wineries in Virginia, and here's to everybody being safe and well. And come check us out, what we're doing in the Shenandoah Valley, and check out what we're doing at Barren Ridge. And we look forward to seeing you all. So have a beautiful Sunday evening, and we'll see you next time. We're going to keep doing these tastings on Sunday, unscripted, live, and you never know who might join us. Cheers. Cheers, Dad.
Cheers.
Here's to you all.